Our next solidarity message is from the research and training group called Minor Cosmopolitans, which comprises a group of scholars who together seek to establish new ways of studying and understanding the Cosmopolitan project against and beyond its Eurocentric legacies. Specifically designed as a training program for early career researchers, it constitutes an international framework connecting Berlin and Potsdam with partner universities in Australia, South Africa, India, and the Americas to pursue PhD and postdoctoral projects in a diverse, decentral collective environment. Individual and joint projects within the RPG examine concrete, critical, artistic, as well as everyday practices. We jointly strive to develop and promote an understanding of cosmopolitanism in the plural, which combines visions of transcultural justice, peace, and conviviality with an ethical commitment to difference and alterity. Ira Raja will read that the solidarity statement.
Solidarity with Professor Hany Babu. The research training group Minor Cosmopolitanisms is deeply concerned about and sharply protests against the imprisonment of our colleague Hany Babu. We are an interdisciplinary research consortium in the humanities and the social sciences. Our group is funded by the German Research Foundation and is based at the University of Potsdam, the Humboldt University Berlin, and the Freie University Berlin. We are committed to the principles of a critical and democratic academic praxis that works towards a more equitable and convivial world, and we have close partnerships with institutions and colleagues on all continents. We are happy and honored that our friends at the University of Delhi are not just international partners, but indeed integral members of our group who are acting as co-supervisors of PhD projects, as co-organizers of our conferences, and in 2017, as hosts of an unforgettable week-long summer school. We're deeply worried about the Indian government's ongoing and intensifying assault on academic freedom, its efforts to transform India's universities into hotbeds of Hindu, chauvinist pseudosciences, and to intimidate, suppress, and criminalize academics, teachers, and students who try to keep doing their jobs as responsible intellectuals, namely to devote themselves to a democratic future with what they have to offer, which is no more and no less than research, sound and sober, and therefore committed. Hany Babu's work is clearly a case in point here. His systematic engagement with language is inherently and indeed inevitably political, pointing to the power structures that are sedimented and constantly reproduced in language use. Others are no doubt more expert in these matters, but from the perspective of minor cosmopolitanisms, we thoroughly endorse Hany Babu's eloquent critique of the majoritarianism that underpins Indian language policy and the way in which he argues in the name of minor modes of expression. For him, linguistic hierarchies and caste hierarchies are essentially complicit, and accordingly, emancipatory projects cannot leave language unchanged. There's no solace in this, but the very fact that Hany Babu has been held in prison for 12 months by now indicates that his critical voice, his advocacy of the freedom to dissent, is perceived as a potential threat to the authoritarian neoliberalism in power. We are appalled by the Indian government's open bids to stifle academic self-expression, and we are extremely concerned about the treatment that Hany Babu has received over the past 12 months of incarceration. We hereby express our unconditional solidarity with Hany Babu and with all other persecuted academics in India. We join in with all friends of Hany Babu who demand his immediate release and rehabilitation. Research Training Group, Minor Cosmopolitanism, Berlin, July 2021.
Our next speaker is Nandita Narain, who is present, and she will address us.
Thank you. Thank you so
So
much.
Vyom,
Ayesha.
please hand over to Nandita.
I would like to express my solidarity and support for my friend and colleague, Professor Hany Babu, Department of English, Delhi University, who, along with many, many other intellectual scholars, writers, journalists, lawyers, has been imprisoned on patently false and absurd charges under a draconian law, UAPA, that can declare anyone a terrorist and keep him or her imprisoned without trial or bail for years. In the university, Professor Hany Babu was known as a committed scholar and teacher who campaigned for the rights of OBC students and scholars, for example, their rights under the reservation policy, and spoke out against education policies that were detrimental to teaching and learning, such as the semester system and the four-year undergraduate program. While he, along with others, including almost the entire English department of our university, faced victimization by the then university authorities way back in 2010 and 11 for simply putting his dissent on record. What seems to have earned the ire of the government is his steadfast support for another colleague and a member of the English department and renowned scholar, Dr. G.N. Sai Baba, a 90% disabled human rights activist who had campaigned against atrocities inflicted on tribals through the infamous Operation Green Hunt at the behest, I believe, and many of us believe, of corporate interests dictating government policy on so-called development, which we all know is a euphemism for corporate loot of mineral-rich tribal land. Friends of Dr. Sai Baba had formed a committee for the defense and release of Dr. Sai Baba, of which Hany Babu was the convener. I was requested as the then president of the Delhi University Teachers Association to join the committee, which I did, and we continue to campaign for the release of Dr. Sai Baba, who is ailing and denied bail. I was shocked to hear of Hany Babu's infection with COVID and then by the black fungus disease. After being repeatedly denied medical facilities and bail, he was finally allowed treatment at a private hospital at his own expense. The report of a renowned, internationally renowned forensic firm, Arsenal Consulting, has completely exposed the diabolical planting of malicious malware on laptops of many of the co-accused in the so-called Bhima Koregaon case, which has now been further reinforced by the outrageous Pegasus spyware scandal. At the, you know about the NSO from Israel, which is, sells the Pegasus spyware to supposedly to governments across the world. That has rocked the Indian parliament and the entire country. In fact, it is, rocking the entire world right now. Many more in our country and around the world have now realized how far the rot has gone, especially after the shocking institutional murder of the 84-year-old tribal rights activist, Father Stan Swami. I hope that this wake-up call will galvanize the international community, as well as citizens of India, to protest and pressurize this government to release all political prisoners, repeal the infamous UAPA law, and all other such draconian provisions, such as the sedition law. In the interim, bail must immediately be granted to the Bhima Koregaon, now 15, as well as to Dr. Sai Baba, whose lives are seriously threatened with the continued incarceration. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
colleagues, as some of you know, I had ties to the academic world of linguistics in India since the early 1980s. During my time as professor of linguistics at Friedrich Schiller University at Jena, I was a member of the Leipzig-based graduate school, Universality and Diversity, Linguistic Structures and Processes. With my contacts with CFIL in Hyderabad, I managed to get Hany Babu, one of their most gifted linguists, on a fellowship of this graduate school. Hany Babu came equipped with a Hyderabad dissertation on Malayalam syntax and a solid background in linguistics. Despite a heavy load of language requirement in German and Sanskrit, he inserted himself very well and very efficiently in the agenda of the graduate program. His presentation impressed everyone. When one of his papers was accepted at a US conference on Dravidian linguistics, the graduate school was eager to finance his trip, and the late Alice Davison promised to organize another talk at her university. The US consulate denied him a visa. Hany Babu's comment, "Maybe they expected me to leave linguistics in exchange for a job as a dishwasher in an American restaurant." Hany Babu worked with me over 3 years and moved along with me to Constance when I became a professor there in the year 2000. During the time he worked for me as a research assistant, I got to know him as a hardworking, serious, and 100% honest intellectual. In addition, I can hardly imagine a person more gentle, civilized, and peace-loving than him. When I learned from him that his home in Delhi was searched by the police and his computer was confiscated, my first reaction was that there must have been a confusion with some other person. Knowing not only Hany Babu, but also most of his family, his wife Jenny, his daughter Farzana, and his mother, my knowledge of human nature tells me that nothing can be more misguided than the charge that he is imprisoned for. Thank you.
Thank you, Ira. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you, all of you, for all the very moving and kind words of support and solidarity. We will have to, of course, rejig, and I am confident that we will have zero trouble tomorrow. So please do log in 10 minutes early or at 5, but we will have our large room. Thank you so much for attending today. And maybe Kavita will be able to speak tomorrow because other people, we were delayed by an hour. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye, and see you tomorrow for 2 more talks, and actually 4 more talks tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you, David. Thank you to all the speakers. Thank you, David. Thank you, Tanmoy. And good night to all of those who are in India. Bye-bye.